The conference room door clicked shut behind me. 9:30 a.m. The VP sat there with his daughter, both smiling like they'd already won something I didn't know we were playing for. He leaned back in that leather chair that cost more than my first car and said 6 words that made my blood run cold. "Will you train her on the clients?" My clients? The ones I'd spent 9 years building relationships with. The accounts that brought in $42 million last year alone. He wanted me to hand them over to someone who'd never closed a deal in her life, never stayed up until 2 a.m. fixing a client crisis, never missed a kid's birthday party because a contract needed signing. I looked down at my badge. 9 years. My wallet held 3 school photos, a grocery list my wife Vanessa had written that morning, and a credit card that was closer to its limit than I wanted to admit. 3 kids at home. Mortgage payment due in 12 days. Car insurance. Braces for Tommy, the furnace making that weird sound again. But something in me just snapped. I unclipped the badge from my belt, placed it on the polished mahogany table between us. The plastic made a sharp sound that seemed louder than it should have been. "No," I said, "I quit." The smirk slid off the VP's face like ice melting on hot pavement. His daughter's eyes went wide. And for the first time in 9 years, I watched Gerald Patterson lose control of a room. My name's Eric Dawson. Up until that moment, I was the director of client relations at Hartfield and Associates, a financial consulting firm that managed portfolios worth over $120 million. I wasn't just any director. I was the guy who built the entire client relations framework from scratch. When I started, we had 6 clients and revenue that barely kept the lights on. 9 years later, we had 43 major clients, recurring contracts that guaranteed stability, and a reputation in the industry that brought people to us. I was 38 years old, married to Vanessa for 13 years, father to 3 kids who thought I hung the moon. Tommy was 11, always building something in the garage. Lisa was 9, reading books that were supposed to be for kids 3 years older. And Jake, our surprise blessing, was 6, with energy that could power a small city. Vanessa and I met in college. She'd been working in event planning before Tommy came along. We talked about her going back to work eventually, but then Lisa arrived, then Jake, and somewhere along the way, we'd made the decision that she'd stay home. It wasn't easy financially, not on one income in today's world, but we'd made it work. Barely. Most months, anyway. That morning had started like any other Tuesday. Vanessa handed me coffee in the travel mug with the broken handle we kept meaning to replace. Jake had cereal in his hair. Lisa couldn't find her library book. Tommy needed permission slip money. "Don't forget," Vanessa said as I headed out the door. "Tommy's got that science fair thing Thursday night." "I'll be there," I promised. I'd missed the last one, and the spring concert before that. Work had been insane lately, but I was going to make this one. I had to. The drive to Hartfield took 35 minutes in morning traffic. I'd made that drive 2340 times, give or take. I knew every pothole, every traffic light pattern, every exit where traffic bunched up. I got to my desk at 7:45 a.m., early like always. I had a call with the Brennan account at 8, emails to return, and a proposal to review before the afternoon meeting. Standard Tuesday. At 9:15, Gerald's assistant showed up at my desk. "Mr. Patterson wants to see you in conference room B." Something in her voice made me pause. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Conference room B was the small one, the private one, the one where people either got promoted or fired and there wasn't much middle ground. I grabbed my phone and headed down the hall, past Deborah from accounting, who'd started the same week as me, past the break room where I'd had 1,000 cups of bad coffee, past the wall where they hung photos of major client signings, and I was in at least half of them. "Open the door to conference room B." Gerald was there, sitting at the head of the table. Next to him sat a woman in her late 20s, blonde hair styled like she'd just left a salon, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. She had Gerald's eyes. I'd never met her, but I'd heard about her. Veronica Patterson, his oldest daughter, worked in marketing for some tech startup in California, or was it Seattle? I couldn't remember. "Eric, come in, sit down," Gerald said, gesturing to the chair across from them. His smile was the kind that didn't reach his eyes. I'd seen him use it on clients he was about to overcharge. I sat, waited. Years of client meetings had taught me that whoever spoke first lost leverage. Gerald cleared his throat. Eric, I wanted to introduce you to my daughter, Veronica. She's going to be joining our team. Welcome to Hartfield, I said, nodding at her. She smiled back, the kind of smile people give when they're trying to look humble but can't quite pull it off. Veronica's got an impressive background, Gerald continued. MBA from Columbia, 5 years in brand strategy, really cutting-edge thinking about client engagement and market positioning. I nodded again, waited for the other shoe to drop. It was coming, I could feel it. We've decided to restructure the client relations department, Gerald said. Bring in some fresh perspective, new energy. Veronica's going to be taking over as the lead on client relations. The words hung there in the air between us like smoke. Lead on client relations. My department, my team, my clients. Taking over, I repeated, kept my voice neutral. What does that mean for my role? Well, we see you transitioning into more of a supportive position, Gerald said. He had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. Slightly. You'd still be involved, of course. Your experience is valuable. We just think it's time for a new direction. 9 years, I'd given this company 9 years. Missed dinners, missed school plays, missed anniversaries, worked weekends, taken calls on vacation, brought in millions of dollars in revenue. And the new direction was his daughter, who'd never worked a day in financial consulting in her life. I see, I said. My jaw was so tight it hurt. Veronica leaned forward. I'm really excited to learn from you, Eric. Dad's told me so much about the work you've done here. I think together we could really take things to the next level. Take things to the next level. Corporate speak for I'm replacing you, but let's pretend this is a collaboration. Gerald looked at his watch. An expensive one. Everything about Gerald was expensive. Here's what I'm thinking. We make the announcement to the team next Monday. But before that, I need you to get Veronica up to speed on all the major accounts. Client histories, relationship details, ongoing projects, everything. He looked at me and there was something in his expression. Not quite a challenge, not quite a threat, something in between. Let's start this morning, he said. 9:30 work for you. And that's when I understood. This wasn't a meeting to discuss anything. This was Gerald telling me how things were going to be. The decision was already made. My opinion didn't matter. My 9 years didn't matter. The $42 million I'd brought in last year didn't matter. What mattered was that Gerald's daughter needed a job, and he had the power to give her mine. I looked at them sitting there, father and daughter, both so sure this was going to go exactly the way they'd planned. Gerald probably thought I'd swallow it, same way I'd swallowed every other decision he'd made over the years. Stay late, Eric. Work this weekend, Eric. Handle this difficult client, Eric, and I had, every single time. Because I had 3 kids at home. Because Vanessa depended on me. Because the mortgage didn't pay itself, and neither did the electric bill, or the groceries, or the endless stream of things kids needed. But there was swallowing your pride, and then there was whatever this was. This was being asked to dig my own grave and hand over the shovel with a smile. I thought about Tommy's science fair on Thursday, how I'd promised Vanessa I'd be there this time, how Tommy's face had looked last time when he scanned the crowd and didn't find me. I thought about Lisa, who wanted to be a writer and was already better at it than I'd ever been. About Jake, who still believed his dad could fix anything. What was I teaching them if I accepted this? That hard work didn't matter. That loyalty was for suckers. That when someone powerful decides to take what's yours, you just smile and say thank you. Gerald was still talking. Think you'll find Veronica's ideas really fresh. She's got insights into client psychology, modern engagement strategies. I stopped listening. My hand went to my belt where my badge was clipped. The badge I'd worn for 30 to 85 days. It had my photo from 9 years ago when I still had hoped that places like Hartfield rewarded merit instead of nepotism. I looked younger in that photo, less tired. So 9:30, Gerald said again. We'll start with the Brennan account since that's our biggest. You can walk Veronica through the relationship history, the key contacts, what approach works best with their team. That's when I did it, unclipped the badge. The metal was warm from being against my body all morning. I set it down on the table between us, right on top of the quarterly report Gerald had probably been using to justify this whole thing. The sound it made was small, but in that quiet room it might as well have been a gunshot. No, I said. Gerald stopped mid-sentence. Excuse me. No, I repeated. I won't be training her, I quit. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Veronica's mouth actually fell open. Gerald's face went through about 5 different expressions in 3 seconds, landing somewhere between shock and rage. "You can't," Gerald sputtered. He actually sputtered. I'd never seen him lose composure like this. "I can," I said, stood up. My legs felt steadier than they had any right to, given that I'd just quit the only job I'd had for nearly a decade with no backup plan and 3 kids at home. And I am. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" Gerald's voice had gone sharp. "You walk out that door, you're done. No recommendation, no reference. I'll make sure everyone in this industry knows you abandoned your position without notice." "You were already planning to push me out," I said. "Just wanted me to train my replacement first, make it easier on you." Veronica found her voice. "Dad, maybe we should." "Be quiet," Gerald snapped at her, then back to me. "You're being rash, Eric, emotional. Think about your family. You've got 3 kids, don't you? Mortgage. What are you going to do, walk out of here and just hope something falls into your lap?" It was a low blow, bringing up my family. He knew exactly what he was doing, knew exactly where to press to make it hurt. And he was right. I had no plan, no job lined up, no savings account fat enough to coast on for more than maybe 6 weeks if we were careful. This was possibly the stupidest thing I'd ever done. But I couldn't make myself pick up that badge again. "That's my problem to figure out," I said. "You're making a massive mistake," Gerald said. His face had gone red. "I gave you a career here, took a chance on you when you were nobody. This is how you repay that." "You gave me a job," I corrected him. "I built the career myself. Every client relationship, every process, every system that makes this department run, that was me. You gave me a desk and a phone. I did everything else." I started toward the door. "The Brennan contract renews in 2 weeks, Gerald said. His voice had changed. Less angry, more calculating. "You're the only one who knows the details of their requirements. Hutchins' account has that issue with the quarterly projections. Morrison's been asking specifically for you about their expansion plans. You walk out, all of that falls apart." I stopped, turned back. "Then I guess you'd better hope your daughter's as smart as you think she is." His smirk was completely gone now. In its place was something I'd never seen on Gerald Patterson's face before. Actual fear. "Wait," he said. "Let's talk about this reasonably. Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe there's a different arrangement we could." "There's not," I said. I walked out of conference room B at 9:47 a.m. 17 minutes. That's how long it took to end 9 years. The office was busy, people at their desks, normal Tuesday morning energy. Nobody knew yet. Nobody knew that the director of client relations had just quit, that Gerald Patterson's plan had just blown up in his face, that everything was about to get very complicated. I walked to my desk. Deborah looked up from her computer. "That was quick. Everything okay?" "Not really," I said. Started pulling personal items out of my drawers. Photos of Vanessa and the kids. The coffee mug Tommy had made me in art class, lumpy and lopsided and perfect. A folder of birthday cards Lisa had drawn over the years. "Eric, what are you doing?" Deborah's voice had gone quiet. "Leaving," I said. "Leaving's like quitting leaving." "Yeah." "Oh my," she stood up, came around her desk. "What happened?" "Gerald happened," I said. Didn't elaborate, didn't need to. Deborah had been here long enough to read between the lines. My desk drawers were surprisingly empty. 9 years, and I could fit everything that mattered into a cardboard box someone had left by the copy machine. Everything else, the files and reports and contracts, those belonged to Hartfield. I'd built them, but they weren't mine. My computer was still logged in. I could have done damage if I was that kind of person. Could have deleted files, corrupted data, sent scorching emails to every client explaining exactly why I was leaving. But that wasn't me. And more than that, hurting Hartfield would hurt the people who worked here, people like Deborah who'd done nothing wrong. I did send one email, though, to my team, short and simple. "Due to management decisions I can't support, I'm resigning effective immediately. It's been an honor working with you. You're talented people. Don't let anyone tell you different. Eric." Hit send, logged out, picked up my box. The walk to the elevator felt long. People were starting to notice, starting to whisper. I caught fragments of conversations. "Is that Eric?" "Box, is he being fired?" "Just saw Gerald, he looked." The elevator doors opened. I stepped in, turned around. Through the glass walls of his office, I could see Gerald on the phone, pacing. Angry gestures, probably calling HR or legal or whoever you call when your plan to quietly replace someone explodes in your face. Veronica stood outside conference room B, looking lost. This probably wasn't how she'd imagined her first day going. The doors closed. The elevator descended. 47 seconds and I was in the parking garage, walking to my car. A 2015 Honda Accord with 140,000 miles on it and a check engine light that came on whenever it felt like it. I sat in the driver's seat, put the box in the passenger side, and just sat there. What had I just done? My phone was already buzzing. Text from Deborah, "Are you okay?" Text from Mike in accounting, "Dude, what happened?" Email notification, then another, then 3 more. People were finding out fast. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called Vanessa. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, you're calling early, everything okay?" I could hear Jake in the background, singing something about dinosaurs. The TV was on. Normal sounds of a normal Tuesday morning at home. "Can you talk?" I asked. "Yeah, Jake's watching his show. What's up? You sound weird." "I need to tell you something," I said, "and I need you not to panic." "Oh God, you're making me panic by saying don't panic. What happened? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, I'm not hurt, but I took a breath. I quit my job." Silence, long enough that I checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. "Vanessa." "You what?" Her voice had gone very quiet. "I quit," I said again. Saying it twice didn't make it feel more real. Just now I walked out. More silence. I could hear her breathing. Could imagine her standing in our kitchen, probably near the sink where she always stood when she was thinking through something difficult. "Okay," she finally said. "Okay, tell me what happened." So I did. Told her about Gerald, about Veronica, about being asked to train my replacement like the last 9 years meant nothing. Told her about the badge on the table, about walking out, about Gerald's face when he realized I was serious. When I finished, she was quiet again. Not the angry kind of quiet, the processing kind. "Vanessa, say something," I said. "I'm trying to figure out if I should be mad at you or proud of you," she said. "Because honestly, I'm kind of both right now." That surprised me. I'd expected panic. Expected her to ask how we'd pay the mortgage, keep the lights on, feed 3 kids. Expected worst-case scenarios and spreadsheets and fear. "Proud?" I asked. "Eric, you've been miserable there for 2 years," she said. "Don't think I haven't noticed. You come home exhausted. You miss things with the kids. You don't sleep well. Last month you had that stress headache that lasted 5 days. You think I don't see that?" "I thought I was hiding it better," I admitted. "You're terrible at hiding things. Lisa figured out you were stressed before I did," she sighed. "But Eric, we've got about $4,000 in savings. The mortgage is due in less than 2 weeks. Tommy needs braces, and our health insurance was through your job." "I know." "Do you? Because those aren't small things. Those are real, immediate problems that don't care about pride or principles or standing up to unfair bosses." "I know," I said again. "Vanessa, I know this was stupid. I know I should have kept my mouth shut, trained the girl, kept the paycheck coming, but I just couldn't." She was quiet for a moment. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. Start looking, I guess. Send out resumes, network something." "Where are you now?" "Parking garage, still at Hartfield." "Come home," she said. "We'll figure this out together. That's what we always do." The drive home took 40 minutes because of an accident on the highway. Gave me plenty of time to think about exactly how big a mess I'd just created. Mortgage was $2,400 a month. Utilities around $350. Car insurance $180. Groceries for 5 people at least $800 if we were careful. Phone bills, internet. The list went on. 4,000 in savings. Maybe 6 weeks if we cut everything to the bone. 6 weeks to find a new job that paid enough to cover all of it. In an industry where Gerald Patterson had connections everywhere. I pulled into our driveway at 11:23 a.m. The house was a 3-bedroom ranch we'd bought 8 years ago, right after Lisa was born. It needed work. The gutters sagged. The fence was leaning. The driveway had cracks we kept meaning to fill. But it was ours, or it would be in 22 more years of mortgage payments. Vanessa opened the door before I made it up the walk. She'd put on jeans and the old college sweatshirt she wore when she was stressed. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup. She looked tired. We stood there on the porch for a second, just looking at each other. "Hi," I said. "Hi yourself," she said. "You look terrible." "Feel worse." She stepped forward and hugged me. Tight, the kind of hug that said we're in this together even though this is a disaster. "Jake's still watching TV," she said. "We've got maybe 20 minutes before he remembers we exist and demands lunch. Talk to me, all of it." We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where we'd eaten probably 3,000 meals, where the kids did homework, where we'd had 100 conversations about money and schedules and life. There was still syrup on one corner from Jake's pancakes that morning. I told her everything again. More details this time. The look on Gerald's face. Veronica's expensive suit. The moment I put down the badge. What Gerald had said about making sure I couldn't get hired anywhere else. "Can he actually do that?" Vanessa asked. "Blackball you from the whole industry?" "Maybe he knows a lot of people, but also people talk. They'll hear why I left. Some will respect it, some won't. Hard to say how it plays out." "What about the clients? You said Gerald looked panicked." "Because he should be. Brennan's contract is up in 2 weeks, and it's worth $12 million a year. They've been working with me personally for 6 years. I know the CEO's management style, what he cares about, how to frame proposals in a way that resonates with their board. Veronica knows none of that." "Will they leave Hartfield?" "Some might, some will stay because switching firms is complicated. But Gerald's going to have a rough few months at minimum." Vanessa drummed her fingers on the table, something she did when she was thinking hard. "Okay, here's what I think. You did a crazy thing, a financially stupid, possibly ruinous thing. But you did it for the right reasons, and I can't be mad at you for that. But now we deal with reality. You need a job fast. What's the plan?" I pulled out my phone, opened my contacts list. I've got maybe 30 solid professional connections, people I've worked with, clients who have moved to other companies, colleagues from conferences. I start there. See if anyone's hiring or knows someone who's hiring. "Today. Right now." "Good," she stood up. "I'm going to make coffee. You're going to update your resume. And tonight, after the kids are in bed, we're going to sit down and figure out exactly how long we can last if this takes longer than we hope." That's what I loved about Vanessa. No panic, no blame, just immediate shift to problem-solving mode. I spent the next 3 hours at that kitchen table, laptop open, updating a resume I hadn't touched in 9 years. Turned out, summarizing 9 years of work into bullet points was harder than it sounded. How do you quantify relationship building? How do you put a number on the value of knowing exactly how to talk to difficult clients? I did my best. Grew client base from 6 to 43, increasing annual revenue by 650%. Maintained 94% client retention rate over 9-year period. Developed proprietary client management system adopted company-wide. It looked good on paper. Whether it would be good enough was another question. At 3:15, the kids came home from school. Vanessa had warned them something was up, but not the details. They tumbled through the door like they always did, backpacks flying, voices loud. "Dad," Jake spotted me first, launched himself at my legs. "You're home, how come you're home?" "Wanted to surprise you," I said, picking him up. 6 years old and already getting heavy. Tommy and Lisa were more observant. They hung back, watching. "What's going on?" Tommy asked. 11 years old, already too smart for his own good. "Come sit down," I said. "Need to talk to you guys about something." We gathered in the living room. Vanessa sat next to me on the couch. The kids arranged themselves on the floor, 3 faces looking up at us with varying degrees of concern. "So here's the thing," I started. "I'm not working at Hartfield anymore." "Did you get fired?" Lisa asked immediately. "No, I quit." "Why?" Tommy's forehead creased the way it did when he was trying to work through a problem. "Because sometimes people at work ask you to do things that aren't right, and you have to decide if you're going to do those things anyway, or if you're going to stand up and say no." "What did they ask you to do?" Lisa again. She was going to be a journalist someday, the way she dug into things. "They wanted me to train someone to take over my job. Someone who got the job not because she was the best at it, but because her dad was the boss." Tommy's face cleared. That's not fair. No, it's not. So you quit because it wasn't fair? Lisa asked. Pretty much. Good, she said firmly. You should quit if people are being unfair. If only the mortgage company would accept fairness as payment. Jake, who'd been quiet, spoke up. Does this mean we're poor now? Vanessa and I looked at each other. We're going to be careful with money for a little while, Vanessa said. But we're going to be okay. Dad's going to find a new job. What if he doesn't? Jake's voice was small. He will, Tommy said with the absolute certainty only an 11-year-old could have. Dad's good at his job. Someone's going to want to hire him. I hoped he was right. That evening after dinner, spaghetti because it was cheap and filled everyone up, I started making calls. Reached out to former colleagues, old clients who'd moved on to other companies, people I'd met at industry conferences over the years. Most calls went to voicemail. I left messages trying to sound confident instead of desperate. Hey, it's Eric Dawson. Been a while. I'm exploring new opportunities and wanted to reach out. 3 people answered. 2 were sympathetic but had nothing. The third was Andrew Morrison, former client who'd moved to a competitor firm 2 years ago. Eric, good to hear from you, he said. Though I heard through the grapevine you left Hartfield pretty dramatically today. Word traveled fast. News gets around. Gerald's been calling people, saying you had a breakdown, walked out without notice, left the company in a bind. He's doing damage control. My stomach tightened. That's one version. What's the real version? I told him not everything, but enough. Andrew listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. That sounds like Gerald. He tried to pull something similar with a guy on my team last year, wanted to replace him with his nephew. We shut that down fast. Wish I'd had that option. So you need a job. Soon would be good. I can't hire you directly. We've got a no-poaching clause with Hartfield, and even though you quit, Gerald would make it ugly. But let me make some calls. I know people who know people. Give me a day or 2. It wasn't a job, but it was something. I appreciate it, Andrew. You're good at what you do, Eric. Someone's going to grab you. Just might take a minute. After the kids were in bed, Vanessa and I sat at the kitchen table with a calculator and a notepad, doing math we didn't want to do. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, food, that's about $4,000 a month bare minimum, Vanessa said, writing numbers in neat columns. We've got $4,200 in savings. So basically 1 month, maybe 5 weeks if we're really careful. Unemployment benefits, I asked. You quit, don't think you qualify. Right, I'd known that, but had been hoping I was wrong. We could ask my parents for help, Vanessa said quietly. No, too sharp, I softened my tone. Not yet, let me try everything else first. Her parents lived in Florida, retired, comfortable, but not wealthy. They'd help if we asked, but it would come with questions, with concern, with her mother's particular brand of worry that made everything harder. Last resort. Credit cards, Vanessa asked. Maxed out from the furnace replacement last year. We'd been paying them down, but there's maybe $1,500 of available credit left total. She tapped the pen against the notepad. Okay, so we've got maybe 6 weeks if we're aggressive about cutting expenses. We cancel streaming services, I start shopping at the discount grocery store, we eat a lot of rice and beans. We can do 6 weeks. And if it takes longer, then we deal with that when we get there, one problem at a time. The rest of the week was a blur of applications, phone calls, and waiting. I applied to 17 positions, heard back from 3, all rejections. 1 was polite, 1 was brief. 1 was from a company where Gerald apparently had connections, and the email basically said, given recent references, we're moving forward with other candidates. Thursday night was Tommy's science fair. I'd promised I'd be there, and for once I could keep that promise. No work conflict, because I had no work. Tommy's project was a model of a water filtration system, complete with working demonstration. He'd spent weeks on it, and it showed. The detail, the research, the carefully printed explanation cards. Dad, come see? He dragged me over to his table, where his project sat between a volcano and something involving magnets. This is incredible, Bud, I said, and meant it. The kid had talent. Think I can win? He asked. I think you've already won by doing work this good. He rolled his eyes. That's a dad answer. It's also true. Vanessa came up beside me holding Jake's hand. Lisa was off looking at other projects. He did all of this himself, she said quietly. I helped him find materials, but the design, the research, all him. We stood there watching Tommy explain his project to a judge, and for a moment I forgot about the job hunt, the dwindling savings, the stress. For a moment it was just us, our family, watching our kid be brilliant. Then my phone buzzed. Email. I almost didn't check it, but something made me look. Subject line, Opportunity Andrew Morrison. I opened it, read it again. Vanessa, I said, look at this. She leaned over. The email was short. Eric, my friend Daniel Reeves owns a consulting firm called Apex Strategic Solutions. Mid-size, growing, good reputation. They've been looking for someone to build out their client relations department. I told him about you. He wants to meet. Tomorrow 10 a.m. if you can make it. Address below, Andrew. That's really good, right? Vanessa said. That's really good, if I don't mess it up. That night, I stayed up until 2 a.m. researching Apex Strategic Solutions. They were based about 40 minutes from our house, specialized in strategic consulting for mid-market companies. Founded 8 years ago by Daniel Reeves, former VP at a major firm who'd gone out on his own. Revenue around $60 million annually. Staff of 45 people, growing steadily. They had 3 client relations people currently, but no director. No one building the infrastructure, creating the processes, owning the strategy. It was exactly the kind of opportunity where I could add value immediately. I prepared like I was defending a dissertation. Reviewed their client list, studied their service offerings, made notes on what I'd do differently, how I'd structure things, what I'd prioritize in the first 90 days. Friday morning, I put on my best suit. Vanessa straightened my tie, something she'd done before every big meeting for 13 years. You've got this, she said. What if I don't? Then you come home and we figure out plan B, but Eric, you're good at this. Don't let Gerald mess with your head. You built something real at Hartfield. You can do it again. The drive to Apex took 45 minutes because I left early, paranoid about traffic. Ended up sitting in their parking lot for 20 minutes, going over my notes one more time. At 9:58, I walked through their front doors. The office was smaller than Hartfield's, more modern. Open floor plan, lots of natural light, people at standing desks, energy that felt different. Younger maybe, less corporate. The receptionist smiled when I walked up. You must be Eric Dawson. Daniel's expecting you. Follow me. Daniel Reeves was in his early 50s, graying hair, glasses, firm handshake. His office had windows overlooking a small park. The walls were covered with photos, most of them candid shots of what looked like company events. People laughing, working together, celebrating something. Eric, thanks for coming on short notice, he said. Andrew speaks very highly of you. Andrew's a good guy. I appreciated him making the connection. So I'm going to be direct. I heard about what happened at Hartfield. Gerald Patterson called me yesterday, actually. Warned me you were unstable, unreliable, walked out without notice. My heart sank. Of course Gerald had gotten here first. Then I called 3 of your former clients, Daniel continued. People whose names I found on Hartfield's website associated with projects you led. Want to know what they said. I waited, not sure if this was going somewhere good or bad. They said you were the only reason they stayed with Hartfield as long as they did. That you were responsive, creative, understood their business better than most of their own staff. One guy, name was Hutchins, said you once worked through the night to fix a problem that wasn't even your fault, just because you didn't want him to look bad to his board. That had been a nightmare of a night. Technical issue with a report, IT department couldn't fix it fast enough, so I'd manually rebuilt the entire thing from source data. So here's my question, Daniel said. Why'd you really leave Hartfield? I'd been preparing for this. Had a polished answer ready about seeking new challenges, wanting room to grow, looking for better culture fit. But something about Daniel made me tell the truth instead. Owner's daughter needed a job. He decided she should have mine. Asked me to train her on my clients, my relationships, everything I'd built. I couldn't do it, so I quit. Daniel nodded slowly. And now you're here 9 days later, needing a job, probably getting pressure from family and bills and all the real-world stuff that makes dramatic exits complicated. Yes, sir. You regret it, walking out? Did I? I'd asked myself that question about 100 times in the past 9 days. No, I said. I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret doing it. Daniel leaned back in his chair, studying me. We're not Hartfield. We can't match the salary you were probably making there. We're smaller, leaner, still building. But we're building the right way. No nepotism, no politics. You do good work, you get rewarded. You don't, you're gone. Merit, not connections. He pulled out a folder, slid it across the desk. Here's what I'm thinking. Director of Client Relations. Build the department the way you think it should be built. You'd have 3 people reporting to you initially, budget to hire 2 more by year-end if you can justify it. Salaries $95,000 to start, with performance bonuses that could add another $20,000 if you hit targets. I opened the folder, contract, benefits package, everything laid out clearly. $95,000 was less than the $110,000 I'd been making at Hartfield. But it was enough. More than enough to cover the mortgage, the bills, the life we'd built. I need someone who can start Monday, Daniel said. We've got a pitch to a major potential client on Wednesday, and honestly, the proposal we've drafted isn't good enough. I need someone who can tear it apart and rebuild it in 3 days. Can you do that? Yes, I said, no hesitation. Then the job's yours if you want it. I looked at the contract, thought about Vanessa, about the kids, about the science fair and the missed moments, and the reasons I'd walked out of Hartfield in the first place. One question, I said. Your daughter or son or nephew or anyone related to you, they ever going to show up and need my job? Daniel laughed, sharp, genuine. My daughter's a veterinarian in Portland. My son teaches high school English in Chicago. Neither one has any interest in consulting, and if they did, they'd start at the bottom like everyone else. I signed the contract right there in Daniel's office, my hand steadier than it had been in 9 days. He made a copy, shook my hand again, and said, Welcome to Apex. Don't make me regret this. I won't, I promised. Driving home, I kept looking at the copy of the contract on my passenger seat, like it might disappear if I didn't keep checking. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Eric Dawson, a woman's voice, professional, clipped. Speaking. This is Jennifer Brennan from Brennan Industries. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Jennifer Brennan, daughter of CEO Richard Brennan. She ran operations for their company, the $12 million account that was up for renewal, the account Gerald had been panicking about. Not at all, I said, pulling into a gas station parking lot. This conversation deserved my full attention. I heard you left Hartfield, she said. We got a call from Gerald Patterson introducing us to our new account manager, his daughter Veronica. She seemed inexperienced. I stayed quiet. Anything I said could sound like sour grapes. My father and I had a long conversation about whether to renew with Hartfield, Jennifer continued. The truth is, we weren't staying with the firm. We were staying because of you. Your understanding of our business, your responsiveness, the way you helped us navigate some difficult situations. That was the value. I appreciated working with your company, I said carefully. Where'd you land? Just signed with a firm called Apex Strategic Solutions. Daniel Reeves' company, we've heard good things. Smaller operation than Hartfield, but growing, solid reputation. She paused. Would Apex be able to handle an account the size of ours? My heart started beating faster. Yes, absolutely. We'd need to structure it carefully, but Daniel's built a strong team. With the right approach, I think we could serve you better than Hartfield did. Send me a proposal. You've got 2 weeks before our Hartfield contract expires. If your proposal is solid, we'll make the switch. Jennifer, I thank you. Don't thank me, just do what you've always done. That's all we're asking for. She hung up. I sat there in the gas station parking lot, processing what had just happened. $12 million. If I brought the Brennan account to Apex, I wouldn't just be the new director of client relations. I'd be the guy who'd brought in their biggest client ever on his first week. I called Vanessa. She answered over the sound of Jake singing something off-key in the background. How'd it go? She asked. I got the job. She screamed, actual scream of joy. Oh my God, Eric, tell me everything. I told her about Daniel, about the contract, about the salary. Then I told her about the Brennan call. Wait, so you're bringing your old client to your new company. Can you do that? I didn't solicit them. They called me. And there's no non-compete in my Hartfield contract, I checked. It's completely legal. Gerald's going to lose his mind. Gerald should have thought about that before he tried to replace me with someone unqualified. That evening, we celebrated. Nothing fancy, we still needed to be careful until my first paycheck cleared, but Vanessa made the kids' favorite dinner, and we had ice cream for dessert, and for the first time in 9 days, the knot in my chest loosened. After the kids were in bed, Vanessa and I sat on the back porch. It was a cool evening, early fall starting to creep in. The fence was still leaning, the gutters still sagged, but somehow it all looked better than it had that morning. "You did it," Vanessa said. "We did it," I corrected. "I would have fallen apart without you." "You would have figured it out. You're stubborn like that." She leaned against me. "What do you think is happening at Hartfield right now?" I'd been wondering the same thing. Gerald's probably having a rough weekend. Veronica's probably overwhelmed. They've probably realized how much institutional knowledge walked out with me. "Do you feel bad?" "I feel bad for the people still working there who have to deal with the mess. Deborah and the others, they didn't deserve that. But Gerald? No, he made his choice. These are just the consequences." Monday morning, I showed up at Apex at 7:30 a.m. Early like always. Daniel was already there, coffee in hand, looking over the proposal for Wednesday's pitch. "Thought you might want to see this before you officially start," he said, handing me a folder. "Be honest, what am I missing?" I read through it. Solid research, decent strategy, but it was generic. Could have been written for any company in that industry. No personalization, no deep understanding of the specific client's pain points. "It's a good start," I said diplomatically. "But it needs work. What do we know about the client, not just the company, but the decision-makers? What keeps them up at night? What are they being measured on? What would make them look like heroes to their board?" Daniel smiled. "This is why I hired you. My office, your office is next door. Let's start digging into this." The next 3 days were intense. 12-hour days, completely rebuilding the proposal, researching the client, crafting an approach that was specific and strategic instead of generic. I brought in the 3 people who'd be on my team, got their input, started building relationships. Wednesday morning, Daniel and I walked into the pitch meeting. The client was a manufacturing company looking to optimize their supply chain operations. Decision-makers were the CFO and the VP of operations. We presented for 40 minutes, showed them we understood not just supply chain theory but their specific challenges, addressed concerns before they raised them, painted a picture of what success would look like with metrics and timelines and accountability. At the end, the CFO looked at the VP of operations. Something passed between them, the kind of silent communication that comes from working together for years. "When can you start?" the CFO asked. We signed the contract that afternoon. $3 million over 2 years, not huge but substantial for a company Apex's size. Daniel was grinning like he'd won the lottery. "This is what we needed," he said. "This is exactly the kind of client that puts us on the map." "Wait until you see what else I've got in the pipeline," I said, told him about Brennan. His eyes went wide. 12 million, Eric, if you pull that off." "I will," I said, "just need to build the proposal." Over the next week, I worked on the Brennan proposal like my life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. This wasn't just about proving I could bring in a big client. It was about proving that walking out of Hartfield had been the right call, that standing up for myself had been worth it. I sent the proposal to Jennifer Brennan on a Thursday. She called me the following Monday. "My father and I reviewed your proposal," she said. "It's thorough, strategic, and honestly better than anything Hartfield ever presented to us. So we're in, send over the contract. We'll sign by end of week." I wanted to jump up and cheer, stayed professional. "You won't regret this, Jennifer." "I know we won't, that's why we're doing it." When I told Daniel, he actually hugged me. "Do you have any idea what this means for us? 12 million in annual revenue, that's a 20% increase. We can hire more people, take on bigger projects, compete with firms triple our size." If you've been watching the Corporate Vault, you know we're all about these real workplace moments, the tough decisions, the human side of business. We're on this journey together, trying to hit that 1,000 subscriber milestone. If this story connected with you, if you've ever faced a choice between your paycheck and your principles, hit that subscribe button. It helps us keep bringing you these stories. The news spread fast. People in the industry talk, and a $12 million account switching firms is big news, especially when it follows the director who brought them in originally. I heard through mutual contacts that things at Hartfield were chaotic. Veronica had lasted 6 weeks before deciding to pursue other opportunities, which was corporate speak for it didn't work out. Gerald had tried to hire 2 different people to replace me. Both had turned him down. The company was hemorrhaging clients, not just Brennan but smaller accounts that had worked primarily with me. Part of me felt vindicated. Most of me just felt tired. There was no joy in watching something I'd helped build fall apart, even if Gerald had brought it on himself. 3 months into my job at Apex, I got an unexpected email from Gerald. Subject line, conversation. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won. Eric, I think we both know how things ended between us was unfortunate. I may have acted hastily regarding the restructuring. If you're interested in discussing a return to Hartfield, I'm open to conversations about a role that would better reflect your contributions. Significant salary increase, equity options, full autonomy over client relations. Let me know, Gerald. I read it twice. It was the closest Gerald Patterson would ever come to an apology, and the offer was probably genuine. He was desperate, and he knew I could fix what was broken. I thought about it for maybe 30 seconds, then I hit delete. That evening, I told Vanessa about the email. "What'd you say?" she asked. "Nothing, deleted it." "You're not even a little tempted. Equity options, that could be real money eventually." "I'm happy where I am. Daniel trusts me. The team's good. We're building something real, and I get to be part of shaping it from the ground up. Why would I go back to a place where I'd always know I was only there because the first plan failed?" She smiled, good answer. 6 months in, Apex promoted me to senior director with another salary bump and actual equity in the company. Small percentage, but it was mine. Based on merit, not politics. The work was intense but different. I was building something, not just maintaining it. Daniel listened to my ideas, implemented the good ones, pushed back on the weak ones. We had disagreements, but they were about strategy, not ego. I started getting home at reasonable hours, made it to Tommy's basketball games, helped Lisa with her writing projects, taught Jake to ride his bike. The things I'd been missing for years at Hartfield, suddenly I had time for them again. Vanessa noticed the difference. "You smile more now," she said one night. "I didn't realize how long it had been since I'd seen you actually relaxed." "I didn't either," I admitted. A year after I walked out of Hartfield, I took stock of where things stood. Apex had grown by 30%, largely on the strength of the Brennan account and 3 other major clients I'd brought in. We'd hired 8 new people, opened discussions about a second office location. I'd rebuilt my professional reputation. The story of why I'd left Hartfield had made the rounds, and instead of damaging me, it had enhanced my credibility. People respected the stand I'd taken. Several had reached out saying they wished they had the courage to do the same. Deborah had left Hartfield about 8 months after I did. She'd found a better position at a competitor, reached out to grab coffee and catch up. "You know Gerald's struggling, right?" she said when we met. I'd heard things were rough. Rough is putting it mildly. They've lost about 30% of their client base. He had to lay off a dozen people. Word is he might sell the company. I felt a pang for the company itself, for all the good work that had happened there despite Gerald. But not for Gerald. He'd made his choice. "What about you?" Deborah asked. "Any regrets?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "No," I said. "It was terrifying at the time, probably the stupidest thing I've ever done from a purely logical standpoint, but I sleep better now. Come home at reasonable hours, actually see my kids. Work for someone who respects what I bring to the table. So no regrets." Tommy won second place at the regional science fair that year with a project about renewable energy. I was there to see it. Lisa started a creative writing club at school, and I helped her workshop ideas. Jake made the soccer team, and I didn't miss a single game. Vanessa started taking online classes in graphic design, something she'd always wanted to explore. With our finances more stable and my schedule more predictable, she had the space to think about what she wanted, not just what the family needed. We still had the same house, fixed the driveway cracks. The furnace didn't make that weird sound anymore. The fence was still leaning, but we'd get to it eventually. One evening, about 13 months after I'd quit, I was helping Tommy with his homework at the kitchen table. Vanessa was cooking dinner. Lisa was reading on the couch. Jake was building something elaborate with blocks. Just a normal Tuesday night, nothing special. Except it was everything. This was what I'd walked out for. Not the new job, not the salary, not even the principle of the thing. This, being present, being part of my family's life instead of just funding it. Vanessa caught me looking around, smiled. "What are you thinking about?" "Just that I made the right choice," I said. "Yeah," she said, "you did." That badge I'd put on Gerald's desk, that 17 minutes in conference room B. It had cost me 9 days of terror, weeks of uncertainty, and more stress than I'd want to repeat. But it had bought me something I hadn't even known I was missing. My life back. The chance to build something on my own terms, with people who valued what I brought, in a place where merit actually mattered. And every single day when I walked into Apex, when I came home at a reasonable hour, when I showed up for my kids, I knew it had been worth it. Every terrifying moment of those 9 days, worth it for this. For a life I could be proud of, not just a paycheck I could cash. For the ability to look my kids in the eye and show them what it means to stand up for yourself. For the chance to prove that sometimes, the riskiest thing you can do is exactly what you need to do. Gerald's email sat deleted in my trash folder. Hartfield was someone else's problem now. And me, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Building something real, with people who mattered, on terms I could live with. And honestly, you can't put a price on that.